Let me ask you something honest. How much of your stress actually comes from other people? From what they think, what they say, how they judge you? Now, here's the uncomfortable truth most people never admit. The people who suffer the most are not the weakest. They're the ones who care too much. Too much about approval. Too much about being liked. Too much about explaining themselves. Machiavelli understood something brutal but freeing centuries ago. The moment you stop caring about what doesn't serve you, life becomes dramatically easier. Not because you become heartless, not because you stop feeling, but because you stop being controlled. In today's video, we're going to break down why caring too much destroys your peace, how Machiavelli viewed emotional detachment, the difference between strategic indifference and emotional numbness, and how less caring actually gives you more power, peace, and freedom. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the calmest person in the room is usually the most dangerous. Let's begin. Why caring too much destroys your peace. Most people believe caring is a virtue, and in the right context, it is. But Machiavelli wasn't interested in morality, he was interested in reality. And reality says this: what you care about controls you. If you care deeply about being liked, people can manipulate you with rejection. If you care deeply about approval, people can control you with praise. If you care deeply about opinions, you become a prisoner of noise. The average person wakes up already anxious. Did I say something wrong? What if they misunderstand me? What will people think? This constant emotional surveillance is exhausting. Machiavelli saw this clearly. Those who reveal what they care about give others leverage, and leverage is power. The more emotionally reactive you are, the more predictable you become, and predictability is weakness. Machiavelli's view on emotional control. Machiavelli never said, "Don't care about anything." That's a misunderstanding. What he actually taught was selective detachment. Care deeply about your goals, your survival, your long-term position. Care less about opinions, insults, praise, validation, being understood by everyone. Why? Because emotions cloud judgment. A ruler who reacts emotionally becomes impulsive. A leader who seeks approval becomes obedient. A man who needs validation becomes dependent. Machiavelli believed self-mastery always comes before mastery over others, and self-mastery starts with emotional discipline. Why the less you care, the more you respect. Here's a paradox most people don't notice. The less you chase approval, the more people respect you. Why? Because emotional independence signals power. When someone sees that insults don't shake you, criticism doesn't control you, praise doesn't inflate you, they instinctively understand one thing: you are not easy to manipulate. And humans respect what they can't control. Machiavelli knew this well. He observed that leaders who were overly kind, overly responsive, overly concerned with reputation were often overthrown. Not because kindness is bad, but because excessive emotional openness invites exploitation. Indifference, when controlled, becomes armor. Strategic indifference versus apathy. Now, let's clear something important up. Not caring is not the same as being apathetic. Apathy says, "I don't care about anything." Machiavellian indifference says, "I care only about what matters." This is the difference between a person who is numb and a person who is focused. Strategic indifference means you don't react to every comment. You don't defend yourself unnecessarily. You don't explain your intentions to people who won't understand anyway. Silence, in many cases, is more powerful than explanation. Machiavelli believed explanation weakens authority. Power speaks through action, not justification. Why people who care less seem calmer. Have you noticed something? The calmest people are often the least reactive. They don't rush to respond. They don't panic when plans change. They don't crumble under criticism. That calm doesn't come from ignorance. It comes from detachment. When you care less about outcomes you can't control, your nervous system relaxes. Machiavelli understood that fear, anxiety, and stress are tools others use against you. A calm person cannot be rushed. A detached person cannot be provoked. A self-controlled person cannot be owned. Stop explaining yourself. One of the biggest drains on modern life is over-explaining. You explain your choices, your boundaries, your silence, your ambition. Machiavelli would see this as a fatal mistake, because explanation signals insecurity. The more you explain, the more people feel entitled to judge. Powerful people explain less. They let outcomes speak. Not everyone deserves clarity. Not everyone deserves access. Not everyone deserves your emotional energy. The less you care about being understood by everyone, the freer you become. Emotional detachment as self-protection. Caring deeply in a hostile environment is dangerous. Machiavelli observed that the world is not fair, and pretending it is only makes you vulnerable. Emotional detachment is not cruelty, it's protection. You don't expose your heart to people who haven't earned it. You don't expose weaknesses to people who may weaponize them. You don't react emotionally to provocation. Detachment keeps your center intact. Why society teaches you to care too much. Here's the uncomfortable part. Modern society rewards emotional exposure, oversharing, constant expression, endless validation seeking. But Machiavelli would argue this creates dependence. A dependent person is easy to influence, easy to manipulate, easy to control. When you care less about social approval, you step outside the system, and systems don't like independent thinkers. How to practice caring less. Practical steps. This isn't about becoming cold, it's about becoming disciplined. Here's how to start. 1. Pause before reacting. Silence is power. Not every emotion needs expression. 2. Ask, does this affect my future? If not, let it go. 3. Limit who gets emotional access. Not everyone deserves your vulnerability. 4. Detach from outcomes you can't control. Focus on effort, not reactions. 5. Stop seeking permission. Live according to your values, not approval. Caring less is a skill, and like any skill, it strengthens with practice. The freedom that comes with detachment. When you care less, you sleep better, you think clearer, you act decisively, you stop living defensively. Machiavelli believed freedom comes from self-rule, and self-rule begins when emotions stop ruling you. The less you care about the wrong things, the more powerful you become. And in a world addicted to reaction, calm indifference is dominance.